Art integrated language learning. Educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all. Aristotle. Being educators, you have to generate a clear perception of this Aristotelian quote that educating the heart is paramount in the process of education. If you examine the statement closely, you will understand that by education of the mind, what is focused is cognitive development, whereas the heart here refers to the art of being humane. It is important to think about what makes us humans humane. Humaneness stems from many things that humans do, from the smile of a child to the kindness and concern that humans extend to animals and sometimes even the inanimate things around them. Let us not dwell deep into the philosophy, but retrieve the perspective of being humane, and it is a fact that art forms are heart-based forms of expression, and a great deal of humaneness is needed for appreciating and analyzing various art forms. In this era, when education undergoes a major change by bringing in a host of hitherto unexplored philosophies like environmental humanities and social and emotional learning, how art functions as an effective tool in education is also an important area to look into. This module on art integrated language learning attempts to equip you as teachers to consider the possibility of various art forms as effective instruments in language teaching in your ELT classrooms. Also, this will provide some input for you to be adapters and creators of materials for an art integrated language learning classroom. Furthermore, this module will offer suggestions about the possible pedagogic methods that the teachers may adopt while making the classroom conducive to art integrated language learning. Understanding art integrated learning. This chapter, as a preface to the module and the content that is outlined, will define arts, discuss as art integrated education, differentiate art education and art integrated education, identify the role of art forms in holistic and experiential learning, National Education Policy 2020, and holistic development of learners. Understanding arts. Defining art seems like an easy task. You may think of it in the expression and representation binary. But is art a representation of something? Is it just an expression of a mental state or an emotion? By now, you may have understood that defining a phenomenon is not very easy. Now, look at a few famous definitions of art before we deliberate on the topic further. Read the following definitions of art carefully. Beardsley says, an artwork is something produced with the intention of giving it the capacity to satisfy aesthetic interest. According to Schlesinger, a work of art is an artifact which under standard conditions provides its participants with aesthetic experience. According to Lindt, an artwork is any creative arrangement of two or more media whose principal function is to communicate a significant aesthetic object. You can see that the aesthetic aspect is focused on in all three definitions. But let us pause for a while and think, is aesthetic interest the crux of artistic expression? Think about various performing arts. You may realize that various art forms are used to foreground certain political ideologies, where art is an instrument to voice the ideology rather than being a form to express aesthetic beauty. Find an operational definition of art to move ahead through this module. Let us look at what is art. Art is an aesthetic expression. Art is an aesthetic representation. Art is a form of creative expression. Art is an artifact that is created to be appreciated by the public. In the preface to the Art Integrated Learning Guidelines of the National Council for Educational Research and Training, Professor Rishikesh Senapati defines art integrated learning as a framework of experiential learning which provides an equitable learning environment for all learners through their own access points. He further states that learners engage in active learning by being in an art integrated learning environment by using various art forms as meaning making tools. This aids the facilitators to create a holistic and interdisciplinary learning environment. An art integrated learning classroom cannot be a silent space. It buzzes with the exciting bunch of learners moving around actively participating and doing their creative work, communicating, thus developing their interpersonal skills. Art integrated learning ensures increased learner participation and involvement in the learning process, which is a step towards self-directedness and learner autonomy. When teachers discuss learner-centeredness, they need to evaluate their input in creating a situation in our classrooms to encourage the development of learner autonomy. Art integrated learning is a tool to facilitate this. Studies conducted to evaluate the efficacy of art integrated learning found that there was a remarkable difference in the school environment, increased level of student involvement in the learning process, remarkable improvement in attendance, advancement in academic achievements, and better social and emotional skills in handling various situations. Think about your classroom. If you, one day, decide to engage your students with what they call dumb charades, how would the environment be? Can you think of the ambience of the classroom and the excitement and involvement of learners in this activity? If you use the same activity with a learning focus embedded in it, don't you think that it is more effective than the usual lecture method? By adding an educational purpose to the game called Dumb Charades, you are integrating art into your classroom. Art integrated learning is a pedagogic perspective which focuses on the social and emotional learning of the learners, emphasizing the importance of problem-solving skills, critical thinking skills, and creativity. Remember, when you have to transform your learners into effective problem solvers, critical thinkers, and creators of new ideas and products, you have to be smart enough to be all that. In other words, in your Bloom's taxonomy pyramid, you will have to be on the top always. Art integrated education versus art education. You already know what art integrated education is. Now, let us think about how it is different from art education. If art is the creative expression of imagined or experienced aesthetic perceptions, art education deals with its pedagogy. Art education is the teaching of art forms being involved in the process of creating the art form. Art integrated education, as you have already seen in the previous section, is a method of teaching through art and with the help of art. The instructional purpose is embedded into the way the artwork is used in the classroom. To state it more clearly, you can say that you do art education when you sketch a portrait and you teach how certain strokes on a paper could define particular aspects of the portrait to your child. On the other hand, you are depending on art integrated education when you make your child draw that portrait by giving measurements and allowing the child to use a scale and compass effectively. A little bit of mathematics here. Art forms. These art forms can be neatly categorized into literature, visual arts, graphic arts, plastic arts, decorative arts, performing arts, and architecture. The following table illustrates some of the art forms and the categories to which they belong. Can you add more art forms under each category? The first category is literature, and the related art forms are poetry, drama, story, etc. Then we have visual, and the art forms related to visual category are painting, drawing, sculpture, etc. The third one is graphic, and we have painting, drawing, designing, and other art on flat surfaces, etc. under this category. The fourth category is plastic, and the related art forms are sculpture, modeling, pottery, clay modeling, etc. Then we have decorative, which has enamel work, furniture design, mosaic, etc. The next one is performing, for example, theatre, dance, music, etc. The next, architecture, and the related art forms are interior design, industrial architecture, etc. And the last one is digital, and the art forms are game, photography, etc. Before the discussion on how these art forms could be integrated into language classrooms, you should examine how art-integrated language learning facilitates the holistic growth of the learners. Role of art in holistic and experiential learning. National Curriculum Framework emphasizes the importance of art in educating and asserts that art-integrated education enables the development of all sensory perceptions through facilitating observation, exploration, and expression. Learners, through observing, thinking, imagining, exploring, experimenting, deducing, creating, recreating, and expressing, definitely enhance their higher order thinking skills, the development of which is the prime concern or objective of education. Social and emotional learning theory asserts the importance of the holistic development of the learner as the central point in education because the objective is to generate global competence among the learners. Experiential learning emphasizes the importance of learner engagement in the process of learning so that they learn by doing and by reflecting on this experience. In other words, active engagement in a learning activity facilitated by the teachers encourages learners to synthesize the experience through careful observation and analysis and to formulate critical questions about their own learning. This largely gives importance to the development of problem-solving skills. You can see that the central concern in experiential learning is the development of higher-order thinking skills. By incorporating art-integrated learning into the curriculum, as a teacher, you can effectively assist your learners to develop their higher-order thinking skills, thereby enhancing not only the cognitive skills but also the social and emotional competencies which will shape them as global citizens. This point is brought in by the National Education Policy 2020, NEP 2020, and Art Integrated Language Learning. National Education Policy 2020 clearly emphasizes the importance of sustainable practices in classrooms at all levels, beginning from primary to tertiary. You have already learned how the holistic development of an individual is possible through art-integrated learning, which is a form of experiential learning. Now, look at how NEP 2020 perceives the importance of art in education. NEP 2020 gives importance to arts as forms of cultural heritage and thus identified various ways in which artists can assist learners at various levels to acquire cultural knowledge and cross cultural competencies. Moreover, attempts to incorporate art across various disciplines will promote interdisciplinary approaches to teaching and learning, the offshoot of which could be enriched collaborations between learners and teachers of various branches of studies. Art integrated learning thus promotes the holistic development and cross cultural and cross linguistic competencies of the stakeholders. When it comes to language learning, art operates as a bridge between cultures and language, connects concrete and conceptual learning, and facilitates a setting to acquire and demonstrate understanding even as fluency in academic English is still developing. Thus, you as a teacher must explore the possibilities of effectively integrating art into our English classrooms. For this, you need to have a clear understanding of your roles in an art integrated language learning classroom.